Well, hello, this is Sam and we're back in the Reloved Guitars workshop, and we're cracking straight on today with a large annoying fly which has just gone, and introducing to you this ghastly looking thing. When you buy and sell guitars on eBay, some you win and some you lose, and I'm kind of disappointed to say this is probably one I lose. It's supposedly a Squier Strat. That's about the only thing I could make out in the photographs, was the no series head or headstock with the fairly good tuners on there, but the pictures were pretty poor quality, so I couldn't really see much other than this nice blue body, which when it arrives turns out to be a home sprayed affair, and badly put back on. The screws aren't even done up properly. There's a kind of bump on, a gash on the neck which is full of blue paint, the same blue paint that's been sprayed fairly badly on here. Having said that, it's not that bad a job. I mean, it's quite hard to do a home spray job. So the guitar came with about 3.5mm playing action, with the saddles all set way too high, and I've just had to tweak those down this afternoon to discover that the reason they were set like that is because when you get to here on the guitar, you run out of notes. So a real pig's ear of a guitar. Actually, as soon as I saw this in the flesh, with its bits of blue paint everywhere, it's obviously been repainted, but actually, judging by the weight of this body, I suspect this is an Encore body, and Encore electrics. It's not such a problem. We've got loads of Squier pickups around, so we can certainly change those out anyway. And I'm determined not to let this guitar get the better of me, although, having said that, the problem with this neck may be insurmountable, but I'm going to give it a go and see what we can do with it. But it is a salutary lesson in being a bit more careful buying. It's also got some of the obligatory cracks on the head, on the place where the neck meets the body and the neck pocket. It's interesting that pretty much every guitar in the universe ends up with these, well, bolt-on necks do anyway, because there are two weakest parts in the entire structure. It's the right angle there, and it's the right angle there. And even when the guitar doesn't really get bashed around, they still end up splitting at some point and to some degree. So getting used to seeing them on most guitars. They're not the end of the world, but I'm going to be a bit more careful when I'm doing my buying. I'm going to ask a specific question to find out whether they actually have any cracks in the neck pocket. If they do, chances are I'll buy something else, and if they don't, or they say they don't and then they turn out to, then I'll be sending it back, as I mentioned earlier on in this video. So yeah, here we go. Whatever this is, it potentially is still going to play nice. I'm just trying out some different colours for repairs here, and I've got some to build up over there, and my local super drug for various kinds of nail varnish is where I'm getting the colours from. I obviously haven't yet taken a sample down there to match up, which I'm going to do with that, and also with this wonderful vintage AV6 Advanced guitar, which I really like. So I'm going to take the scratch plate off, or the neck off this one of these days soon, and take a little sample of the paint colour for each, so I can go and match them perfectly. But having said that, that's a bit later down the line. First of all, then, we're going to just pull this baby to pieces and see what ghastly horror lies underneath. But you know, I'm going to take it seriously and do my very best to make this play. I've had it plugged in. To my ears, all the pickups work, but they seem incredibly reedy and thin, which tells me I don't think it's even a Fender body. So the question here is, did the guy knowingly rip me off? I paid £50 for it. I wish I hadn't, but that's too late now. Did he rip me off knowingly? Who knows? I sent him an email or a message saying I wasn't happy, and to be fair, he apologised, but he didn't offer to do anything else about it. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt in this case and didn't leave any nasty feedback particularly. I sort of left it till next time, but I think next time if I get another guitar like in this condition, then I think I'll be less forgiving. So let's get straight into it. Let's crack on and let's see what we can do. These strings, by the way, I'll give him one thing. Even though they sound terrible, they look new, but they've got that fairly dead sound to them. Kind of might be worth almost keeping them as a set and putting them back on. I think I will try and keep them as they come off, only if, so far as we can use them to, at some stage in putting another guitar back together again, it may be that they can be useful to get a guitar under tension. Now what happens is, when I do this, I don't know if I can do this differently, when I take these strings off a guitar, they always get completely intertwined and tangled with each other, and it makes a complete mess of it and makes it really difficult to keep them, to use them again. So I'm going to try and do my best to keep them separate from each other. So I'm going to sort of stick them into a little masking tape doofer as we go through. But I say, I won't use them to play again. And it's my hope that if we can tidy this guitar up, then we'll at least get a playable guitar that somebody, maybe a local buyer, would appreciate and enjoy. There's no reason at all why we shouldn't do that, and with the techniques we've got available to set the guitar up well, I'm confident that we can make it play better than many a tidier looking guitar. So that's my ambition, is to get it at least to that that condition. God, it's hard to even stick these down, they're all over the place. Yeah, so that's what I'm aiming for. And you know, what I'm also going to look out for is if there is a point along the way here that this is just a non-starter, then you may see on this video that I call time on it and just duck out and give up. That creak you might have just heard, by the way, was the sound of the neck moving. It's actually creaking and moving from side to side because it's so badly screwed on. Again, not necessarily a sign of anything that's completely insurmountable, but I am really going to take this thing completely apart and give it the best treatment I can do, and then we're just going to see if there's any way of saving it. I'm always for the underdog, as you might tell from any of my other videos, but I think there's also a point at which we have to be realistic and say this isn't going to be a good use of my time necessarily to keep on flogging what might be. We might have to just decide there's a bit of a dead horse at some point, but that's not going to be yet. So let's stick with it for a minute. No, this is not wanting to come out. That's interesting. Seems to be nicely jammed in place. Come on, out you come. Thank you. That's what happens. It's the minute you start trying to save strings, you end up in a bit of a mess trying to keep them separate from each other. And here we are. We've already lost the separation I was aiming for. 1, 2. Please just stick down and call it quits. 2. No, it's not working. Come on. 2. No, they're not sticking at all. It's going to prove to be potentially a waste of time. 2, 3. Come on. 4. These curly ends make the whole business just really hard work. You might just keep them to stay there for 5 minutes while I take these last 2 off. And then I might just be able to line them up and stick them together so that they're reusable. I have a couple of sets knocking about anyway, but what on earth is this one? Alright, that's that. So, yeah, it could be that we are encountering this time another one of those guitars that may be beyond saving. And as I say, if it is, well, better accept that in this game you are going to mess up at times, and you're going to get shafted by somebody along the way. It's just the nature of it. I don't think there's any way you're going to really guarantee against that, which is a shame, but I think that's how it is. I think, to be honest, we've done pretty well so far. I wouldn't say we've been lucky. We've made some pretty good decisions along the way, or choices when it comes to buying. These things are all getting tangled already. It's just a nightmare working with old strings. It's almost impossible, and on top of that, it's almost too much trouble. I can't even get them to stay in one place. They just do not behave. I'm trying to line them up so I can stick this down, and they just move every second. In fact, this is such a pain, I'm going to lock these first 5 together. Hopefully that'll allow me to put this last one on. Yeah, so most of the decisions we've made so far, or I've made, around buying have been good. And I think, the truth is you're going to get a percentage which are bad along the way, and this could be one of them. But, with the spirit of optimism prevailing, we'll see if we can't get it to at least be a bit fun to play. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to. We've got a fair few bits of spare parts around that we can press into action. Right, pretty much got all the strings, well, definitely all the strings, and I've just got some new glasses today, so I'm sort of getting used to those, and I'm not sure how they'll combine with my old bloke's close-up glasses that I use in these videos. But if you hear me gasping in surprise, it's because I suddenly can see a whole new world that I've never been able to see before. But I didn't anticipate sticking the bloody thing to the table. Oh god. Right, here is my set of strings. Theoretically, I'm going to dangle them over here. They are theoretically in sort of condition I can get them back and use them when I need to do something. Right, so let's take this whole thing apart. Let's get to the root of all of this. So first of all, the neck bolts are pretty rubbish. 2 of them are worn out. They've been crunched, like they've been badly treated. And I'm going to take them off. The front 2 feel like they're over tightened. Whoa! That is a horrible noise. Oof. That is a ghastly noise. What has this person done to this guitar? I think you're hearing it here for the first time, but that is a really not encouraging sound. That's never heard that before. So I have a suspicion that the more I dig into this guitar, the less I'm going to like the guy who sold it to me, and I certainly will be on the lookout for him, to avoid him like a plague next time. Let's see what we got here. Let's pop it out. Any shims? No shims, but geez, what a bit of a botched up mess. It's been chopped about a bit. Any sign of what kind of guitar it is? I'm judging by the weight. That feels that feels encore. As to what's rattling around in there, your guess is currently as good as mine. Let's find out. This back plate doesn't match the cream coloured stuff on the front, nor do the things come out properly. So it's all a bit of a mishmash, I'm afraid. Oh, we'll see. Oh dear, I don't know what he's put in there. Let's do this by hand. He's got tiny little screws which are stripped already, so they're not coming out, most of them. Mixture of things. I do so wish you could see this in detail before you buy. which is why I take good quality pictures of mine when I'm selling them. God, this is just lousy. I'd have to fill all these holes and try and start again. Okay, so all that was a bit of the tremolo popping off, or spring, sorry. I don't know why it popped off particularly. Was it broken? It's such a thin, nasty little block. I'm not even sure it's a Fender one. We do have replacements, so possibility I can use another one if it's even worth it. In fact, what I'm going to do is just pull this out for now. I'm going to take it out because I have it out and have a look at it. So I'm going to get myself a little container as usual. Put all these horrible bits in there. So far, I'm pleased to say we have replacements for most of those bits. So if any of them are knackered, we can do something. I'm just looking at that bridge. It feels maybe it's Stratish. It's nothing too unusual about it. Just take the whole thing out. And what I'll do is I'll give it a clean anyway. It looks like it's stripped. So it's all been butchered a bit. I think there's all slightly different size screws. Again, we've got more of these replacements. So. Okay, so average, slightly wimpy tremolo block. By comparison, we haven't got one here now, but the vintage Strats have a fantastic solid stainless steel block, and it's just amazing that these blocks on the Strats are made of some sort of cast steel, and it literally tears. So the tremolo, this guy seems to have hooked the tremolo springs over these holes here, and they've actually torn the edges of it. So let's have a look under here. I'm not really sure what I'm going to find, apart from lots of spinning screws that are stripped in their threads. This cream looking pickguard doesn't even appear to be cut right. It's really like it's been cut at home. Oh well. What I might do is I might just disconnect this. Oh god, it's going sideways. I might disconnect this scratch plate and just have a look. Give ourselves an option to fit a spare one that we've got from a Squier. Again, we've got loads of pickup screws that we can replace if we need to. Okay, let's see what have we got. Do I recognise that? Does that look Squierish to me? I'm not sure it does. We've got some, what have we got in here? We've got some black goo. We've got, it's sort of routed as if, oh, we've got a spare wire knocking about here. That's disconnected already. No wonder that sounded rubbish. So there's no earth at the moment. That's off. Bits of broken stuff. It is an absolute pig mess. So I guess what I'm going to do is, what am I going to do? I'm going to disconnect it. I'm going to take this off as well. The whole hog. I just might consider changing the pickups on it, or I might not. We'll see. It might possibly even sound better if we were to. It would sound better if we were to reconnect that earth wire, probably. I'm not going to do that right this second. I'm just going to carry on taking the thing apart. And we have a nice new quality soldering iron. I'm going to use this for the first time. So I want to get it really hot and give it a bit of a tinning on the end. Let's just stack it on there so it can heat up without touching anything. Yeah, and I'll just touch off these contacts here to remove this whole area, because that's the only thing. There's no earth. The earth isn't connected, so that's the tremolo plate. So what is this material? It looks a really crudely cut piece of wood. It doesn't feel Squier to me. It doesn't really matter. I mean, all you've got is a Squier shaped piece of wood which has been spray painted in this blue, which is, to be honest, it's a bit, got a couple of runs here, lines where you see it's run, but overall it's not a bad blue. I could live with it. So as soon as we've tidied it up a little bit, I'm just going to do my best to get some pickups into here that work. We've got a couple of scratch plates spare over there. We could either drop the whole ones in, which might give us different holes to use because these have been taken on and off so many times, or we might just change out the pickups here and connect them back up to this little setup in here. So let's see how we're getting on with our pouring on. Wow, it's getting hot quickly. So I'm going to put some, it's not hot enough yet. Nearly there. Okay. There we have it. Nice and hot. What we don't have is a wet sponge. But anyway, let's just get these off here for a minute. It's much nicer quality soldering iron. The last one I had kind of melted throughout the day when I was using it, which was extremely frustrating. Come on, there we are, we're off, and I'm just going to switch this off because what I don't want is to sit here melting the iron all day long and we don't actually need it. So I've got a holder here, which is, the purpose is just to catch the iron. Okay, so we have the scratch plate we can pull out for the time being, and then we're left with this rather not brilliantly done body, which again we can do a little bit of work on. I don't know if this is an underlay, but it's probably safe to say that this was a cream colour before. I really don't know what these lumps of goo are in here. So some sort of token attempt to, I don't know, shield the inside there with some black paint, but as you can see it's a really basic piece of stuff here. So from my point of view, that we'll come back to that. I think we've got some work we can do with that. I'm just going to prop it up over here for the time being. Just stay there. Meanwhile, we'll just pull the various bits off this neck, partly because I just want to give everything a clean and start from scratch. Now, as I'm looking at this neck now, I'm noticing a tiny little hole, pinhole, where he's had a go at doing something, maybe changed the tuners somewhere in the past. So many things. Oh, which reminds me, I've got to tighten up some tuners on another guitar. There's always a few little things to do. And there'd be some work to dig out the colour on these and this dented neck, and also fill some of these holes with lacquer, and then we could smooth those out. And it's easy to do. So we're, a neck like this is kind of restorable without going into ultimately too complicated or too high-tech methods. We can do this sort of stuff fairly quickly and lightly, and may well not meet the approval of many online luthiers or experts, but it's not really the point. The point is we're starting with something that isn't that very good, and we're going to do what we always do to try and make it better. So, for your information, I'm not sure how far we will go with this, but let's assume we're going the whole way. So what we'd be doing with this is to take everything off, clean all the individual parts, check everything to make sure that nothing is terminally broken, check the wiring, check the electrics and make a decision about whether we put back some of the Strat pickups we've got knocking around from other Squiers, and also some Encores. And then while we're doing that, then what we'd also then do is check this neck. We'd use a truss rod to level it, and then we'd fret level all the frets on this neck as standard. Even if we don't know how far we're going to get with this guitar, we're going to go ahead as if we're going to get all the way with it. So we'll do the fret leveling and polishing, and just, you know, we'll aim, even if nothing else worked, we'll aim to have ourselves a good, well treated neck that we could use if we had to on something else. But we'd still aim to put it back on this guitar. And then we put the neck back on the guitar. Actually, while the neck's off, we do a few little lacquer repairs on the body. And then once that's done, we put the neck back on and bring it up to tension, and then go into trying to set a workable action. And we may have to, at that point, we will see whether or not we've actually got a neck we can work with, because it may be that the problem we felt earlier on when we were trying to play notes up the neck may well have been because this neck is beyond saving. So we won't know just yet. So I want a flat neck before I do any work on frets, and this is slightly bowed, and I know that if it's bowed and I want to take it out, I'm going to turn my Allen key clockwise, and I'm just feeling that straight off. First touch of that is spinning quite, no, I was going to say spinning freely, but actually no, it's got some bite on it. Get the a nice little coloured stripe down that neck. Could be quite nice. So I'm just going to let that neck kind of recover. Yeah, it's funny, it's really funny how this how difficult it is to spot guitars when you're only looking at a photograph. I guess if you really want to sell, make sure you take the time to do as many good quality photographs as you can. That's my advice, which is why I take quite a bit of time doing that. Right, so what we would do with this neck then is just see if we can get the wait till the adjustments on the truss rod take effect. I'm going to go clockwise again to try and add a bit more in this. It seems to be turning. Yeah, so we're going to level this neck out. I'm going to clean the fretboard with some solvent, naphtha or lighter fuel, and then mask it off, getting it ready to be fret leveled. And I'm just going to do that as quickly as I can. A bit later on, when we come back to it, this neck has got lots of little dents and burrs on the back here, and I'm going to dig out the colour out of this one where the paint's gone in it and any other little things, and then I'm just going to drop blobs of lacquer, clear lacquer into it, and we'll just build that up until it's even, you know, it doesn't matter if it's bumpy, and then we'll go over the whole neck later on and smooth that all down, and we'll get back a nice smooth neck that if we do play on it won't catch your fingers on the various little dents and stuff. So actually it's good news. That's pleasing to report that has pretty much leveled that flat out, so that's better than I expected. So straight away I'm going to go for the lighter fuel. Ow, it's bloody hard to open this thing. You can probably tell that I'm sort of keen to just get on with this guitar. Being that it's now kind of feels a bit marginal, what I don't want to do is be taking loads of extra time. Well, I don't want it to take too long. Kind of hard to expect that if the guitar starts with problems, which this one does. It's probably unlikely that you're going to get one that's no trouble at all. Just have a quick look. Yeah, that's not bad actually. This naphtha approach is probably not very cheap because it seems to use quite a lot up per fret to get the goo off it, but it does seem to pull off most of the old junk and cleans it up. And it's something we always do. There's nothing nicer than starting with a guitar that has nobody else's DNA on it, to be honest. It's nothing worse than having lots of finger goo from someone else. And I was reading about a particular guy on eBay who sells what some people think are butchered guitars. I won't mention him by name, but he takes 7-string guitars and he kind of modifies them to make them into 6-string guitars for people with very big hands. I think he's a well-meaning guy, and I think he's not naive. It's probably a bit judgmental, but I think he had a head injury at some point, and I think he's doing the very best he can to pursue something he believes in and enjoys doing. But he gets kind of slain on these guitar forums that I've seen him mentioned and discussed, and he manages somehow to rub everybody up the wrong way. But one of the things that somebody said, somebody who bought the guitar from him and then kind of came on the forum to claim how bad it was, and they said that in a way they almost didn't mind that the guitar might have been a bit butchered, but for the fact that it was filthy as well. And I have to say, I've noticed that on looking at his listings, that his guitars do seem to, he does some quite radical modifications, things you wouldn't expect to be done to a guitar. And so he's kind of adventurous, you could give him that much, and he talks about setting them up perfectly so they're beautiful to play, and gives a whole spiel about that, a bit like I suppose I do, but he doesn't clean them, and they seem to just go out with all the original crap and goo on them that they had from their previous owner. And I just think that's a bit of a silly oversight, really. I mean, why would you overlook that? It's a sort of basic principle that if you're going to redo a guitar the best you can do it for somebody else to enjoy, then it just makes sense to clean it up. Because first of all, as I don't know if you can see, but last night's job was this beautiful Squier Strat, and it was shiny, it's absolutely sparkling, beautiful, and it was just really dirty before, and it had some other bits, a few little things wrong with it, but nothing major. So that guitar is just brought completely back to life by a good attention to detail, taking all the bits off and giving them all thorough clean, as we're doing here. So that guy I was talking about somehow doesn't think that's important, and which is just really weird. Now I'm almost getting into that gap, that crack, to get the blue paint out. So with a bit of thumbnail application into the depression, I think we might just get all the blue out in one go without having to do any more sort of digging or excavation, which would be good. Yeah, probably. Might just do a tiny bit here. Come on, here we go. I don't mind it making a slight dent even still, because I'm going to fill. What I really want is any kind of trace of the blue or the dirt to come out of that little trough, so that when I start to put stuff on top of it, it doesn't look too dirty under there. Right, so here we go. We've got a flat, pretty much a flat neck. Just double checking it hasn't gone any more convex. Just for my own interest here, I'm just going to quickly check to see. Well, straight away, first check, second fret that I've checked, well, the second fret, the first one I've checked, has uneven frets. A bit more there. Not. A bit more there. And neighbours doing the usual yelling at children thing. Oh yeah, really high fret up here. You can hear it. That may be, and here as well, those high frets may be the ones that were causing all the choke notes. But let's assume that they are, and I'm going to now mask off this neck, ready to fret level it in one kind of fell swoop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this process and then I'm going to switch off, save you the misery of watching me do this because it takes a while. And even if this is not the best guitar in the world at the moment, I'm still going to treat it as if it was. I'm going to protect the neck, and just, you know, the better you treat it, the better it will work and perform. That's my theory. If you treat it badly, it'll degrade, continue to go downhill. So I'll just get this going, and you can see what I'm doing, and then I will stop, cut the tape until, cut the video until I'm done. So you can see that first thing I'm doing is getting myself lined up with loads of masking tape of a certain size, and I'm going to start by laying it onto the fingerboard, and basically I can use 2 pieces for the wider frets, but then you'll see that I'll need to cut some different thicknesses to do all the rest. And I'm just going to lay it on there like that, and when I've laid it all on the neck, I'm going to go down the whole length and fold it back onto itself and pinch it at the back. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want a sort of little tag that I can easily rip off when it comes time. When we've finished all the neck work, fret work, I can fairly easily pull it all off again. It can be quite a painstaking process. If you wrap it round on itself onto the neck, you'd be surprised how hard it can be then to get it off. So here we go. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to take the time to get every bit of this neck protected, even this bit over here, because I don't want to do any damage to it, and I want to treat it like it deserves to be protected. Alright, so I'll be back in a minute when it's done, probably with some lighting as well. Okie dokie, first part done. So we have the neck beautifully masked off, and now what I'm going to do is just pile straight on into the fret leveling part of this, and I'm going to do this as fast as I can, and it's going to be a case of, here we go, let's just fire it away. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some marker pen on all of my frets, because I'm going to want to level them all a little bit. So I will expect to take some material off every single fret on this neck, but by the nature of this file I'm going to be taking more off the high frets than off the low frets, but the point of it all, of course, is that we'll end up with even frets, and even as I did that, I can feel some major scratching on these frets, so somebody's bashed this neck around royally. So here we go, just going to fire away, get this done. I'm going to make sure we get right to the edge to level everything out, and working my way across to the middle and then to the other edge. I'm going to tip it over the edge again there, just to make sure we get everything, and I'm going to come back this way, starting at the far end, and with a little bit of pressure at the far end, just to make sure we get anything we missed the first time. Okay, so that's taken a certain amount off all the frets, and I'm going to do a quick check over with my fret rocking tool. I'm just going to see if there's any high spots left over. There's one. And if there are, just nibble away at them, and kind of doing some random checks here as well. I don't need to do everything, but you should be fairly confident by this stage that that fairly aggressive fret leveling we'll have pretty much evened everything out. As I say, taking a bit more off the ones that happen to have been uneven. No, that's all good. Insane. I'd like to say it was funny, but actually it isn't. Alright, that's done. So that's the first part of it, and the second part is we're going to paint all of those frets again, because having levelled the frets now, the next thing we have to do is to reprofile them, because currently they're at the right height, but they've got a flat spot on the top. And to do this, I'm going to use a fret crowning file, which you can get at a variety of these things, different costs. This is a medium or fairly low cost one. You can do this job with a basic three-sided file. It takes a bit longer, but it's actually more precise. Or you can do this job with a custom-made tool, which is quicker but less precise. Or you can do it with a more expensive tool, which is quicker again and probably a bit more precise. But I'm going for the sort of lowish, fast and cheap option here. And I'm now going to just kind of run this over the top of my fret, and the idea is I'm going to just reshape this fret so that it's no longer a flat spot, and that it's got a kind of a normal humped profile. And it's a bit unscientific. I can see it's taking, I'm not taking too much off the top, but it is touching the top, which means there's a chance that it will lower the fret just slightly. But I'm trying to make sure that whatever happens, I'm doing the same to all the frets, so that it's at least consistent. So if anything goes down, they all go down a little bit. But this is a much quicker way of doing it. Say it's a little bit cruder, but faster. When you do a lot of these, then it's nothing to sniff at. When you get a bit of time saving, get everything done quicker. And if I was doing this with the three-sided file, the purpose of the marker, the permanent marker on top, is as you work on it with a file, whether it's this tool or hand file, what you're doing is you're aiming to leave untouched on the top of the fret a thin line going all the way along the fret of marker pen, and that is your way of knowing that you haven't reduced the height of the fret any further than it already is. And so you can then be fairly confident that you've reshaped the fret, but you haven't actually lowered it anymore. So you've preserved the good work that you've just done in levelling all those frets. So we're nearly there. Quite a bit quicker than it would be if we were doing this by hand with the three-sided file. But if you don't have one of these and you can afford an £8 three-sided file, you can certainly be doing your own fret recrowning. And if you were doing it that way, the sort of low-tech way, then you would be using the file to round off the shoulders on the fret, so that you reduce the area flat on top by rounding the shoulders to meet the top, and leaving a very thin line of marker pen across the top, which is your way of knowing that you've still got the same height you had before. Okay, 5 more frets and we'll be done on this part of it. Of course, in doing the fret levelling, we got rid of some of the nicks and burrs that these frets had, I noticed. But we have at the same time created some more, which is the kind of aftermath of the fret levelling file itself, which is quite a rough file. So we're going to have to now work on polishing these frets with a variety of sandpapers, progressively working up to getting them very smooth and a kind of mirror-like finish. Ooh, I go with my new glasses as well. Okay, so that's the reprofiling part done. Much quicker than doing it by hand, I have to say. Now here comes the another hard bit, and that's called polishing the frets. And to do this, we're going to use a variety of different grades of paper. I'm going to start with some quite rough or gritty 320 paper, and I'm going to use that. The purpose of this will be to remove any of the scratches from the fret leveling file, but because it's so abrasive, we've also got to be very careful that at the same time we don't end up lowering the frets any further. Otherwise, again, we will sort of it'll be counterproductive, and we'll undo the work we've done in leveling the frets in the first place. So what I have here is I've got a couple of different grades of paper to begin with. So we're going to start with 320, we're going to move to 600 and then 1000, and after that we're going to jump to a set of micro mesh papers and a block, which is somewhere around. I'll find the block in a minute. It's over there. And these micro mesh papers will then go from 1500 or 1800, 1500 all the way up to 12,000, and at the end of that we should be pretty much shined and ready to go. So first bit then is to get going with the really heavy abrasive paper, and the idea is we've got to get out all the big gouges out, but we've got to do everything evenly because we don't want any part of the frets to get more treatment than any other. So I'm going to do it with my fingers to begin with, and I want to get the whole length of the fretboard and every fret to get the same treatment as every other, so that if I do lower it by a few microns, then I'm lowering all of them at the same time by the same amount. Again, the thing to remember is that if we don't get the sort of scratches, the major file marks and scratches out at this stage, then we're going to struggle to get it out at the finer stages because the abrasive power isn't there. They start progressively finer papers. So, a lot of dust coming off that. Having a look at this close up, and it's worth taking a really good look. If you've got a magnifying glass, even better. But get right up close and just check and see, are there any clear scratches remaining on these frets? And if there are, then you're going to need to attack it again with 320 paper. If not, I can actually see one, I think there. It's like a gouge, a nick on the side of it. If there are, be very careful that you don't end up taking down one spot on any one fret more than any others, because you could find yourself back into the same problem. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this onto a rubber block with a point, and I'm going to run it over the frets. That's hopefully taken out any of the major scratching, and then we're going to go straight to 600, which I'm going to do manually. Again, same using my fingers. Again, to let my fingers kind of roll over the frets, so that we try to avoid getting any flat spots. And again, this is still fairly abrasive, so we are hoping to iron out any final scratches that have lingered on. Then once we've done a few kind of goings on that 600, then we'll move to 1000, and then we'll switch to the micro mesh papers, and we'll be off into our run down to 12,000 at the finest. So go to 1000 now. Now what I'm going to do on 1000 this time, I'm going to stop and do some long ways along the frets, just to see if there are any scratches that we need to take out going that way. And beyond that point then, we are on the home stretch really. We should be aiming for kind of a nice smooth finish. And we can either end up, got a couple of options, we can either end up doing a bit of polishing with a Dremel and a Dremel wheel, which I think I've just about run out of, or we can end up using one of these fret rubbers, which is a rubber that's impregnated with some scouring stuff, and that will allow us to just bring the frets up to a shine. Okay, so here we go now. We're going to start with 1500, and again I'm going to use the pointy block, and I'm just going to do a few runs on each of these papers now. I'm not going to stay around too long on any run. So every fret gets done, dump it, move to the next one. 1800. $2400. $200. And the fret rubbers right at the end, actually, they're just a kind of last polish step really. They won't take anything off, and we can just use them straight across the surface of the frets quite simply and quite quickly to make sure that we've got a really shiny final surface. As you can see, no matter what the state of this, the rest of this guitar is in, I'm going to treat this neck with the respect due to a guitar neck, and in the belief that actually there's no reason why this shouldn't be a perfectly good playable neck, because that's what's at the core of all this real guitar stuff, is the knowledge that all the basic components in most guitars, all but a tiny minority, are good enough to play well. They're just not set up properly. Okay, so we're just stopping there on 12,000 grit, which is practically just polishing now, and then we'll take out our highest, well, our softest fret rubber, and I'm just going to go across each one to ensure there's just a quick polish across the top. And actually, I'm just looking at this, and in a way, this is probably less polish or more abrasive than the 12,000 we just did. So I haven't really compared the two before. This is more than good enough to revitalise some frets on a guitar without going through the fret levelling process, and leaves them perfectly playable, but actually oddly enough it's slightly slightly more abrasive than the 12,000 paper we ended up on. But actually what we've got now are perfectly good playable frets, and then we can just go straight to the process now of pulling off the paper, which we hope is in the form of tabs at the back, which make it easier to rip off and pull one side and the other. And actually it's quite nice because without using, or for a change not using the Dremel and the stuff over there, the polishing compound, it means a bit less messy process than usual, and it can get everywhere. But as it is, we're done in probably record time, because we've taken deliberately at this time. I took the fastest of all options, just to see how quickly we could do it. I will be investing in a more expensive fret crowning tool, I think next month, and we'll be able to see whether that produces any time savings, because it's all very well nice to spend lots of time, but actually when you do a lot of them, anybody with half a brain is going to want to, as long as the quality stays the same, you're going to want to save a bit of time. You don't want to be doing this all night long if you can help it. So I started out doing it all manually, and now I'm getting to a place where I could afford to buy those tools just to make that part of it a little bit easier. And I guess that's the reward for having stuck at it and done it by hand to begin with. Sell a few guitars and then reinvest the money into tools to make the process a little bit more, a bit quicker and a bit more bearable, a little bit less tedious. Although it's very quite meditative and very satisfying to do it by hand, because what it means is it's important, I think, to start doing it that way, because the first thing it means to you is you don't have to wait until you've got all the tools to do this to your guitar. You can, as long as you get some instructions like this, you can then get on with it with very low tech equipment and make a big difference to the playability of your guitar. Okay, so I am done on this neck. That is a really nice, well, I'm not done on the lacquer part of it, but I'm done on the hard work, if you like, the fret leveling and reprofiling, which is nice. And as I say, probably in record time for a reloved guitar, thanks to kind of automation, I suppose. And this fretboard now looks really nice. What's nice is that you can see some of the dirt coming off, but using the naphtha as a way of removing the grease has actually done it without drying out the fretboard, which I think is quite a nice touch. So it means we have a nice rich finish. Sometimes you do it other ways, sometimes you can do it with a sandpaper and water, and it can dry out and look a bit horrible. But there we go, perfectly leveled frets, playable, ready to go. I'm going to park that until a bit later on we'll do some, I won't do it on camera, but I'll drop some lacquer into here and starting to get this ready for smoothing out. But that's just a matter of putting lacquer on it and leaving it flat so it settles. Okay, so next job will be to go through all the bits and clean them. Again, don't need to see that on here. And we'll come back when we're ready to do something with the body. Yeah, well, welcome back. Here we are with a magically reconstituted blue sort of Squier Stratocaster. The more I handle this guitar, the more convinced I am this is an encore body with a Squier Strat neck. And I have to say, you know, we'll make the best of a bad job if that's the case, if that's what it is. We are in the process of making it play nicely and look not too bad. Now, since the last bit, I have put back the guitar, I've put the tuners back on, I've put the neck back onto the guitar. I've also put some lacquer into the dents on the back of the neck, and I'm going to keep on adding little bits of lacquer so that I can build those, any little dimples and dents up so that we can then polish them out. I've had a look at the pickups, and I was going to replace them with some Squier ones, just in case they weren't Squier ones. But then I noticed the Squier ones are a slightly different size to these, so the only way I could have done it would have been replacing the entire pickguard, which actually I think this looks nice in cream, I have to say, even if The pickups so far didn't sound the best in the world. I quite like the way it looks, so I've kind of left it where it is for the time being, and we'll see. And if necessary, we might experiment with some more. We've got a couple of loaded pickguards over there which we could mess around with, but right now it's the neck is back on. I've put some new neck screws into here, which are slightly bigger in that they fitted just a little bit more snugly than it was before. It's back into place, holding tight, holding firm. There's no movement in the neck now. The cracks are visible here, but they're stable. I've filled a couple of little holes here and polished those out a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to take care of the dents that were on there. And so right now it's time to put the strings on and to put the guitar under tension and see what we've got. So I suppose a couple of, well, a choice here. Do we put new strings on and get it ready and see what we've got, bearing in mind there's a bit more body work to do around these edges here, or do we go for old strings? And actually, the thing is, I'm determined to play this. I'm not doing this just for fun. I'm doing this because it's theoretically it should be playable. It should be okay. So I'm going to put the real strings on because my intention is to play it, not to kind of give up on it as some sort of hopeless case. Right, just putting a little bit more tension on these tuners so that they're all they're all kind of positive in the same way as each other. That's not bad. Yeah, so for the sake of £4 worth of strings, I'm going to go for it. And we'll see what happens when this is under load, and we'll see whether we've got a neck that's playable or not. My sneaky suspicion is I think it will be alright. I hope so anyway, because it's not a bad looking guitar. You know, colour wise it's quite nice. It's very light, and because of the body being this Encore, I think it's made of Chinese, very light Chinese hardwood that Encore or John Hornby Skews uses in their Chinese Encore factory. So, but you know, it's that's positive. So yeah, we'll put it under load and we'll see what happens. And then what I have done since we spoke is one of the things I noticed, even though the guitar played earlier on when I plugged it into an amp, I also noticed when I took it back off that the earth wire from the tremolo wasn't grounded. So it may, I don't know much about electronics, but it may, I'm wondering if that's why the sound seems so thin out of the pickups. So maybe the fact that I've now grounded it properly, earthed it I should say, might improve that. I don't know. Those in the know about electronics might be listening going, you moron. But who knows? So, some nice new strings going on. Always a nice point of the nice part of the whole exercise. And you've done all the hard work on the neck, putting the strings on. Feels like sort of heading towards the end. I've got one more guitar to do this weekend, and a couple longer term electronics fixes. One of them being the vintage V100, which is a really nice Les Paul copy that I'm very fond of already, and at the moment the only major problem with it is that because I was working to all manner of useless internet wiring diagrams, my volume and tone controls are reversed. They're working the wrong way around. I mean, they work, but the one that's supposed to control the front pickup controls the back one, and vice versa. Which is no problem if you... Oh, that's not good. Ernie ball. That's a defect. String with a crimp already in it. Boo hiss. That's a second. Anyway, let's hope it doesn't just break straight away. What was I saying? Yes, electronics. Yeah, so the vintage V100 electronics are kind of reversed, but a bit silly if it's somebody else owns the guitar, but if it's me, it's not really something I need to adjust. I just know that they're back to front, and I can do one. The other thing I think is not currently connected is the tone. Well, I know it's not connected. The tone pots are not connected, and I need to go in and just actually they're not earthed, so they're not working. I shall go and sort that bit out. Let me just look at this string now. Am I about to make a mistake? Yes, I am. I was about to put... I think worse than getting a moth in your ear when you're trying to concentrate. Yeah, I was about to put the 9 string into the second hole. So instead I shall put it in its correct place. Trouble with having the workshop door open and all the lights on is you get a lot of insect visitors. As you can see, they get in the way. Well, so far this guitar is a hell of a lot nicer than it was a few hours ago. We're going to get there. A few hours ago it was kind of it wouldn't have surprised me if I'd been sending it to the scrap heap, because it was didn't have an awful lot going for it, but I've kind of done some rescue work on it, and with a bit of luck shortly we shall see whether the neck is playable again, or actually equally we may see whether it has a more substantial fault which we're not able to do anything about. Right, we'll just cut these overhanging strings off, and there we are. Our pre-strung guitar with what is currently a sort of lowish action, but I know from before we took it all apart, I know this action was choking all the strings because there was something very definitely wrong. But we'll see. You never know. We might, having taken the relief out of the neck, we might have changed it enough that it plays okay. Or we may not have. There are a couple of wires that came loose as I took the scratch plate off, which I've soldered up with my new soldering iron, so I'm hoping it'll work. Of course, I've taken the movement out of the neck, nice, yes. As you know, new strings will always go straight out of tune, so we're going to expect that, and we'll give them a few good pulls so that we take all the slack out of them. So we have got a guitar that is tunable. The action's quite high at the moment, even though the saddles are set quite low. Well, that's a surprise, because immediately the work I've done on those frets and the straightening of the neck has completely eradicated the choked notes problem. We suddenly got back all the notes. Right. Which is amazing. So its intonation's all wrong still, the action will still all be wrong, but that's an encouraging start to have reclaimed all those notes. Masking tape glue. Right, so what we know straight away is we've got the notes back, the action's horrible, so the first thing I'm going to do is do a bit more on the action. My only concern would be if we take the action down and we run out of adjustment on the bridge saddles, then we're in a situation where we have to take the neck off again and put a shim under there, which, given the state of all of this guitar, I really would prefer not to be doing that sort of thing. So let's see what we've got left in the adjustment room down here. It's not an awful lot, but I think that's probably enough. I'm also conscious here that this is remarkable, this guitar. This the alignment of this neck and the bridge alignment is quite a way off, so I really bought a mongrel here, I have to say. Serves me right, but yeah, even the bridge is slightly canted off to the left hand side, too far that way, so serves me right, eh? What are we doing? Let's look. Right, down with these. Down you go. Down with the E strings. Down with this sort of thing. Right, let's get lower with those. Come on, and a bit lower with this one. And this one, see where we're at. Yeah, of course, it's amazing. In fact, it is quite amazing how far off the mark this whole bridge piece is. The neck hasn't got any further adjustment it can go. There's no shim space possible. There wasn't any shim under there. So, God, this is a mess of a guitar. And the more I pick this apart, the more annoyed I am at the bloke who sold it to me. But that's the price you pay. Well, it sounds better. The intonation's still wrong, I can hear it. So apart from, let's see if you can see this, the bridge is too far down that way, meaning there's too much room here and not enough room there, and I can only think that sometimes that's caused by the neck being put on at an incorrect angle, and you could imagine that correcting it if you canted the neck in a particular direction, but in this case I don't think it's that. I think what's happened is the bridge has actually settled in the wrong place, because it's got so much wear on the holes that I think actually we could probably have pushed the bridge to the right and screwed the holes, screwed everything down there. But to be honest, I'm going to leave it as that's the price we're going to pay for this guitar, which is ultra stupid. But now the next thing to do is we're going to test just quietly test the, make sure that I've wired it correctly, or the wiring is still working, and then we'll set the intonation, and there'll be a few little bits to do after that, but this guitar will then stand as a sort of testament to all that's unholy. Let's hope it works. Okay. And there's something wrong in the wiring. More messing about to do. That's great. That's correct. At least the pickups were working in the right order. Middle one. So the bridge is the really bloody annoying, having gone through all of that hassle. What a pig's ear this guitar is. So let's see, what's the easiest way of sorting this out? Slacking these off. I'm wondering while we're at this whether we get a chance to do anything with the neck pitch. I can't see it, to be honest. If we were going to put a shim in, it's quite such a substantial shim that'd have to go in there. We'd have to knock that to the side by, if we were doing it by moving the neck, we'd have to knock it about 3 millimeters one direction, when in fact that's the more likelihood, greater likelihood is the bridge is probably more movable than the neck itself. But in fact, I think neither of them are in reality. I think we're stuck with this. Now the question for me is, what is causing this shorting sound? And it's connected to the volume pot, I think. Even that, even the holes on the jack plug socket are stripped. I'm going to have to try and pull this up and out in situ, for which means I'm going to need to hike up these strings under tension. Given this guitar is kind of more neck heavy than it is body heavy, I'm also going to have to be very careful it doesn't at any point fall off the bleeding workbench. It's a little bit demoralising at this point. I was hoping that would be the end of this guitar for the time being, but no, more to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull these strings up here on this foam block, hoping that allows me to make an adjustment here without having to damage the strings, because that would be a bit demoralising on top of all of this. And what we now find is, of course, oh yes, we've got, this is caught underneath. Oh Lord. The neck has an overhang on it, which stops me pulling the pickguard out easily. So I have to get the pickguard going backwards in order to get it out, which means I need even more slack on the strings, which means they're probably going to pop out. Can I do it? Will it do it? Will it allow me? Can I lift it up? Can I go far enough back? Not yet, I can't. Okay, now do I have room? Still probably not, knowing this fabulous construction of this. That is such a pain in the bum. So actually, what this is telling me is probably I can't get this off because I can't move this whole plate backwards with the neck still in place. So you can start to see that already I'm losing my will to persevere with this guitar. It's such a shame. I don't want to be defeated, but I am running out of patience. Somebody sent me a comment, or gave me a comment the other day on one of these videos saying he was very impressed how when things got difficult I kept the video running, and I guess there were two reasons for that in my mind. One is I don't mind filming things when they go wrong because that's reality, but I think the other part is in actual fact it's a lot harder for me to edit stuff, and it takes too much time on top of doing all of this, so it's much easier just to keep on filming. Okay, so it was a mixture of both things. And the problem I've got here is I can't see any way of getting this far enough back. Oh yeah, I can, just about 1 millimeter's tolerance. I'm just going to make those stand up. Right, okay, so we just had enough room to get back here, and probably haven't got enough room to turn it over. Okay, I'll just prop it up. So we have got something buzzing like crazy. I can put the jack plug back in, and I'm going to have to now try and work out where this is now going wrong. So we earthed it. Where do we earth it? To an earth, and that's now white one is earth. Let's take this out. White is earth, black is going to the live or the hot. And if this isn't the right case on this jack plug, that might be the simple answer to this. Also, I need to, I suspect, yeah, well that's the problem. This is reversed here. So it's time to heat up the soldering iron. So the earth finder tremolo is straightforward, that's correct. It's the, bizarrely, the wiring on the jack plug is wrong. That's okay, I can lop that off pretty quickly and sort that out. So we could be back where we started within a few minutes. Meantime, what we don't have is any grip for these stupid holes, and I'm thinking I'm going to get some of this sticky stuff back going, because this guitar is not going to be one that we're going to kind of spend loads of time and money trying to rebuild from scratch. I'm going to need to put a little bit of fillery stuff into those holes, just give them an extra piece of grip. That's what we most need. This is impossible. Right, we are warming up on the soldering iron, that's good. This stuff looks really useful, but it's hellishly hard to get out of this tube. Oh, it's like giving birth to something. Not that I would know. Right, that was harsh, hard work. Right, so I'm going to leave that there for a minute. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare to just switch over these the jack plug socket inputs, because they are wrong. I haven't got really much room here, so I'm going to have to sort of do this by hook or by crook. Let's see if I can hold this in place. Get that to hold the wire, and this. So we want the white. Come on, how'd you come? Good. So the black to the middle. No, not white to the middle. White to the middle, black. White to the middle, black to the outside. Come on. That's it. White to the middle, black to the outside. Put that under grip. Oh yeah, right. White to the middle, black to the outside. Can't reach it very well. White to the middle, black to the outside. Come on, you can do it. There you go. Put a bit more solder on after this. White to the middle, black to the outside. Solder. Just as we thought we'd got some progress, we've had to go backwards a stage, but there's enough poke in the eye. Come on. Oh, don't blow on your solder joints, damn it. Right, black to the outside, come along, you get there. We really want that to come in from the outside as well. Come on. Through. Let's get some more solder on there. Okay. White to the middle, black to the outside. Take off the little bit of excess over here. Right, now before I put that back in, I'm now going to apply with a suitable device. I'm going to apply, alright, I'll do it with a blade. I'm going to apply a little bit of this ultra sticky stuff into the screw holes, or at least around. Can't do it around the screw, but I'm going to have to apply it. It's the wrong, this is very much the wrong device to use. I need something like a screw, but not a screw. Something like this, but not that. Well, I'm going to use that for the time being. Right, I'm going to get some of this into the hole, because, actually that's not a bad tool for the job, because without this, these screws are not going to stay in place any longer because they've been stripped so far back. But this is good. I feel a bit like the dentist here doing some very delicate work. I'm just going to try and push that in as far as you can get from this sort of angle, which isn't very far. I think if you've ever tried to do any poly fillering, there's no simple way of making try and push poly filler into a hole and it just doesn't go in. It kind of pushes against the air that's already in the hole. Okay, I'm not going to need any more solder, so let's pull that out. Put it up here, safe, out the way to cool. Right, so first step, we're going to shove this back in and we're going to drop down the plate into position, and I'm going to screw in on top of this sticky goo. Hopefully that's going to drive some of that goo into the hole, and it will help the whole thing to stick, because to be honest this guitar won't really withstand too many more takings apart. It won't hurt if you have to, then you can still pull, still be able to pull off that, unscrew the screws. It'll just be, it will just, it'll just break the seal. I'm just going to try one thing here just before doing the out. Okay, we are properly arranged. Now, yeah, that's fine. don't worry, that's just the jack plug sitting. Right, hooray! We can now put this back together, and then we can tighten the strings up with, hopefully, retaining them as working strings. Now what I am going to do is on some of these screws where they're so horribly loose, I'm going to borrow a little bit of this stuff on the screw thread. I'm going to wind it in to here, because without it this screw is just going to fall out again. So that way it will just stick in there a little bit. And the same for all the other ones. Again, just an extra little help, and we'll just wind it in there. Blimey. Not going to give up on this guitar. Came close there a minute ago, almost had enough. It's a bit of that sticky, just rub it off. Yes, came close. Almost had too much of it. Got too much for me. However, we got there. A quick bit of investigation. The thing about electronics on guitars is they're not essentially very complicated, but if you're like me and you don't really know much about them to begin with, even though, I can hear the owls, even though it's not hugely complicated, it's still enough to set your head spinning, because just a few wires will be kind of confusing if you don't know really what you're looking at. That's nice. These are sitting in quite nicely, especially with this extra bit of glue, or whatever this stuff is. No more nailsy type stuff. It's actually very, very useful glue. I've never used it before, but I'm going to make it my business to use it more often. There you go, that one has already stripped so badly that it just sat in place, dropped in. Yes, so I think once we get these all in place, I think we will probably be able to get a half decent playing action out of this. That's my hope. And then providing it sounds okay, I think it should do. Then it might even be a fun guitar to play. And some of these squeeze a bit of this stuff out. That's okay. Don't really need much, just a tiny bit, because there's so much loose space on these things. They've been taken off and on so many times throughout its lifespan by the looks of it. But anyway, we're nearly there. So if you buy this guitar, you'll have seen how much hard work has gone into making it play again. I've also got a couple of flakes of blue paint out underneath the pickguard, so that I can match it with a tiny little bit of nail varnish or something from Superdrug, which is quite a nice low-tech way of just making a couple of tiny touch-ups. Not because it's the best material to use, but because paint like this, whereas there'd be no real hope of matching this with any known guitar paint, I expect, since it's been home sprayed, and I have no idea where that paint would have come from. The only way we're really going to match this paint is to go and find something else that's very similar, and thankfully the Superdrug and places like that have such a broad range of ladies' nail varnish that it's almost definite that I can find one that matches. So, and I found one already that will allow me to touch up a tiny blemish on the Squier Strat, standard Strat that I've got down here waiting to be done. That's probably tomorrow's job. Twang, all going alright so far. So, unexpected delay. Get everything tightened back up, hopefully bit by bit, so that we don't have any tuning problems or end up with any strings pulling off. Right, and this is before we really have a chance to do anything else now. Quick, very quick test. Okay, all in order. Not the greatest sounding thing, but enough to be getting on with. Good stuff there, so I'm just going to find some more of it that isn't 100 years old. Serious stuff, adhesive. Ooh. Right, blimey. So, after a bit of a crisis moment there, we now have a guitar that is working, in need of some, well, it would ideally need the bridge shifting to the side to even out the strings going up the neck a little bit. But we can't have that. I just want to give it a quick test, bearing in mind that it's going to be intonated wrongly. That's not good. Be needing a new one of those. Right, so is the question for me, is the tremolo locked in place enough for my liking? And I think the answer is yes. I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to put an arm on this one. It plays. Quick test on how much drive it's got coming out of it. Not too bad. Right. Okay, so what we need to do now is to intonate this thing so we can call this part of this job pretty much done. So while we're here, let's get this up. Now, intonation, setting the action, actually, what I'm talking about, we're not at intonation yet. Let's just take these off. First thing we're going to do is check the neck relief. We've been so distracted, I've been so distracted, I'm about to get sidetracked and miss out this important job. Now I think there's enough relief in that neck, more than enough. It's still, yeah, the action is still too high, but I'm kind of content with the amount of bow in the neck, so I'm not going to do anything else to that. The string tension is causing the neck to bow enough. What I'm going to now do is concentrate on the action. And we know already that the action's still too high here. There is a bit more play in it. I'm quite concerned if I go any lower I'm going to end up with buzzing frets. So before I go any further, I think one of the things I'm going to do is just adjust the nut and action. Now, the guy I was looking at, that's interesting, that's very interesting. That's not something that normally happens, is it? Or is it? Yeah, the thing that surprised me was that the amount of angle Okay, sorry, talking to myself again. Right, so what we're going to look to do is to get a height of the string over the first fret of a certain amount, and we can measure it with those things that are called feeler gauges. And the guy I was talking about, whose name I shan't mention, but there's a guy on eBay selling guitars who sets the action over the first fret so low that it's practically touching. And whilst I'm a firm believer in getting this right, or getting it to a sort of quite lowish level, I also don't believe that it should go as low as he does his. So I'm aiming on this guitar for a string height of about 0.3 of a millimetre over the first fret. It sounds tiny, and it's not really as small as it sounds, if you sort of get what I mean. Now, thankfully, this nut is of a material that seems to cut quite easily. So I'm going to keep measuring it, and I can see there's a gap and fresh air, and I can see there's room for the string to come downwards, but it's not far off. I'm not going to overdo it. I'm just going to take a bit more. All nuts are different material, and the kind of force that you might need to get one to cut using these little tools may not be the force you need to get another one to cut, so you've got to be careful that you don't overdo it. That's really nice and low, but then now I'm going to do the others by eye, and there's quite a bit of difference there. But as I said, these little welding nozzle pipe cleany things that you can buy on eBay as a sort of substitute for the expensive nut files, they're actually cutting quite quickly into this material, so I have to be cautious and sort of just light. Proceed with a light touch. Each time I do an adjustment, I tune it back up to the correct, roughly the correct pitch, so it puts the string under its normal tension. It will pull it to the bottom of the slot, and then we'll get a kind of a much clearer idea if we're now getting to the right level. A little bit more. So you can see that most of what I'm doing, from having set the first one using a feeler gauge, every one I'm doing after that is done by eye. Mainly because, contrary to what you might think, your eye is an extremely accurate measuring device, probably far more acute than you'd imagine. And you can see the distances and the shadows here and get them absolutely spot on. Now the reason I'm doing this at all, I haven't really gone into any detail about this, but the reason I'm cutting the slots down a little bit is because one of the things that can happen with the guitar is if the string goes over the first fret too high, then the amount of force required to fret chords around the first few frets of the guitar is usually so great that it bends the note sharp, so that the chord you play, the notes in the chord, are sharp compared to the notes surrounding them, the unfretted notes. And that's really, really annoying, and it can make you think that your guitar is out of tune kind of permanently, and it will drive you mad. And that's usually the result of a nut slot which is not deep enough, and that's very common. Now I think the guy I was saying on eBay, I was talking about, I think he cuts them just for the sake of getting them to a particular height, and that's kind of a rationale in itself. I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because if they are too high, they will affect the way your intonation works, and it can be, as I say, one of the most off-putting things in that can go wrong in the whole of your guitar, and it's one of the most common problems on a budget guitar, is that these slots are not deep enough. With the result that you can tune the thing up to concert pitch with a tuner, and you think everything's hunky-dory, and then you go and play an open chord, which by rights should sound wonderful, and lo and behold, it sounds like a bag of garbage. And it took me a very long time to work out why that was. And when I worked it out, I was not going to get caught out again. That's not too bad, I like that. Down a bit with the final two. Yeah, it took me a very long time to work out with a guitar that I got so frustrated with that I became very close to selling, actually close to throwing away at one point, but close to selling, because I could not get it to sound in tune no matter what I did. And it turned out that the cause was exactly this problem I'm describing to you now. The slot on the nut were far too high, and it was making all of the notes in the open chords go sharp. And it was kind of interesting for me, because it was pretty much what taught me what I needed to know about how to get this right and make it, do it better on other guitars that I had. So I'm very grateful for it in a funny sort of way, but for the couple of years it took me to work it out, I was mighty annoyed. Having spent some £300 on this guitar, and to feel that it was unplayable was not good. Right, I'm coming up on the last one now. This is the last adjustment I'm going to make. What I am going to do while I'm at this part of the game is I'm going to put some graphite powder that I've bought, great expense, I haven't yet used. I'm going to put some of that into this, into the nut slots. Yeah, I'm going to put that into the nut slots and see how that lubricates things and stops any little pinging noises as we tune the guitar. Sometimes you can get the string sticking as you tune it, and you hear those little pings. This one's proving quite difficult, mainly because this last little file is very, very bendy, and I'm struggling to get it to make an impact on this nut. It's kind of doing anything but cut the nut. Nearly there. Still high by comparison. Don't give up, give it another go. don't want to switch back and use the B string cutter because it's sort of making a rod for your own back, making a slot that's bigger than it really needs to be. It's sort of setting yourself up for buzzing problems and weird things, but this is sort of proving to be quite difficult with this stumpy little thing. Well, I'm going to stop there because that's not too bad. Right, let's get this tuned again. Yeah, get off. Starting to pick up. I'm liking it now. Now what I am going to do is keep my word, and I'm going to do myself a little bit of graphite. Whoa! Wow. Didn't quite know how that was going to come out, but apparently this is really good for lubricating locks. Oh, bugs, man. Let's see what it does here. For all I know, it might make one stinky mess. Oh, not easy to use. Right, not easy to use. Okay, how am I going to do this? I'm going to put some on a surface and apply it some other way, because this is just going to make one stinking mess. Cool stuff though. I'm really in the unknown here. Okay, I'm going to have to clean over the top of all of that, but there you go. Some graphite in the nut. I'm not going to do any more blowing anyway for the minute. Graphite in the nut. Drop that in. Graphite in the nut. Oh, look at that, just piling it all in. Sort of easy enough. Looks a bit mucky, but I can tell my buyer that it's got extra special, expensive graphite chucked around everywhere. Alternatively, could have got a pencil and given it a good old going over, but no, this is space age graphite. Only the best really loves guitars. Right, popping that in there. And let's go back up under tension. It's all over me. Okay, we are almost there, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a long haul. I don't know how much longer this video is going to last. A bit of cleaning up to do and stuff, but let's just get straight on to the intonation while we're still alive. Hello, sweetie. Almost there. Right. This is Claire.
Hello.
Long suffering.
Where's the cat? Oh, there.
There it is.
You're right.
Yeah.
Where's it going?
I've got it working. So all I have to do now is do the intonation, which requires the phone. And then I've got a few little tidying up bits on this, but it's much better.
Nice and low.
Yeah. It's still got some more to go down this end, but actually that's true. Bit of tweaking at this end. I'm wondering where my bits and pieces are.
Is it better than you thought it would be?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah? It doesn't sound too bad.
No. I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to intonate it with that as is. So,
Kitten alert.
so it's sharp, which means it's too short, which means...
This is Morris. Trying to get free.
Oh, God, it's not got... right. Sharp, sharp, too short, coming back, so screw it in. Hard work. That'll do me. Come on.
When do you know it's...
When it stops going down or up.
Alright.
Ow.
Oh.
So if I hit the 12th fret now, that's pinging it. I tune it to that, and then I hit the 12th fret, fret it with my finger,
Yeah.
and that should be the same note. But if you watch,
It's...
it's sharp.
Yeah.
So that means the string's too short,
Right.
which means I tighten it up to bring the saddle right back, which makes the whole string go sharp.
Right.
So I bring it back to B again. Flat. So that's too long.
Very delicate.
So now I'll come back a turn that way, tune up. Flat. Only a tiny bit. Enough to live with. Sharp, too short, drag it this way. Which is what we end up with, that pattern of stepping back, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is what we'd expect. It's on. Sharp, too short, drag it back. right, drag it back, so clockwise, and it's what we expect, 3 going back. Good enough. Sharp, too short. Screw some in. I'll do. Then we do one thing and we go. That's the beauty of intonation. Like an angel singing from heaven.
A blue angel.
But isn't that, do you hear that? How beautifully in tune?
I know, it's perfect. It's got a nice tone to it as well.
That is why I do this, right? All of that last 3 hours.
For that little moment.
No, but to be able to turn an absolute pig of a guitar into that.
Totally get it.
I'm going to come in now. So, thank you for sticking it out with me for the time it took to turn this no-hoper into a beautiful sounding guitar. And you heard the intonation there. You heard how true all those notes were. And this guitar, think back to the beginning of the video, this guitar didn't even have any notes about across the whole length of this part of the neck. And now we have a playable guitar with a bright twinkling sound, but more importantly, as importantly, one where the notes fretted up here are perfectly in tune and in harmonic